So for all the TV viewers out there, this is it, last show. We're on Tezvav Bays, and this is the story, the end of the story of Acher. Right? We had all the Acher stories, how Rabbi Meir tried to pull him back, and they went from Beis Medrash to Beis Medrash, and every Beis Medrash they came to, the Yanuka, the Tinok, the youngster, gave a pasuk of bad news to Acher, and this was always a sign of determinism, of prognostication, what the future is, and one after the other, until the last one, the 13th BAYT Knesset, either he cut the kid up into 13 pieces, or he said, if I had a knife, I'd cut you up into 13 pieces and send you to the 13 BAYT Knesset, that I've heard all these bad things. But at any rate, he did not return, and the story of Rabbi Meir and Acher is Rabbi Meir learned from Acher, even though we normally have a rule that we cannot learn from someone like this, but he was able to separate the dross and retain the fruit inside. Okay, poskim say you can't do that anymore. Okay?
Well, maybe he mostly learned before he became Acher. I mean, that's possible too.
No, but once he becomes Acher, once he
saying about it, we don't
in
know
other
how
words,
long he learned
but once you well, we'll talk a little bit more about it. But so a little bit more on the stories of Acher and what happens when he dies. And I do have a piece that's taken from Michtav Melio that summarizes a little bit about the Acher story. So at any rate, we've gotten to the point where he's gone to his 13 Batei Medrash, and now he passes away. Kinoach Nafshe De'acher. So from the top it's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 lines from the top. Kinoach Nafshe De'acher. We see it?
Yep.
Okay. Kinoach Nafshe De'acher. When Acher died, Amrei, they said, lo miyadan or lo meidan l'dainei v'lo la'amadasi leisa. We can't judge him. We're unable to judge him, and we can't put him into the Olam Haba. Now, it's not really clear who's saying this. This looks like this should be a decision that's being made upstairs, but it's still not clear. Why? Lo meidan l'dainei. We can't judge him. Judging him means we're going to send him to Gehenna, right? Because he was a heretic, a sinner. Mishum da'asak b'raisa, because he studied the Torah. And therefore, the schus of the Torah, the wisdom of the Torah, the learnedness of the Torah, the spirituality of the Torah, has a certain ameliorative or protective effect. And he can't go to the future world. He can't go because he sinned. So he's going to be in this nether world. He can't go to Olam Haba, and he can't go to the Gehenna. So he's going to float around. So this looks like this should be taking, this is a decision that will be taken upstairs in the heavenly courts. But the next person who responds is Rabbi Meir responds. So it means that Rabbi Meir was made part of this kind of conversation. Some Rabbi Meir says, he obviously, you have to assume he's being listened to by the Pamal Yisham, by the Beis Nishamala. Mutav l'dainei v'leisi le'alma diaseh. It's better that he should go to Gehenna in order that he'll eventually go to Gan Eden. So if you don't process him, because you say we can't send him to either side, can't send him to Olam Haba because he sinned, you can't send him to Gehenna because he learned Torah, so nothing will ever become of him. What will happen? His soul will wander forever. So better let him serve his time, and then he'll go to the Olam Emes, because eventually everybody serves their time, and the Torah will allow him to enjoy the Olam Haba. And Moshe Amos, he says, when will I die? Whenever I will die, says Rabbi Meir, V'yala Asham Mikivro, and the smoke will come up from his grave, which means to say, this will be a sign that he's burning in the Gehenna. When I die, I'm going to look after this. Now, somehow he had this. They confided in him what the decision was. Rabbi Meir says, when I die, I'm going to schlep him to Gehenna. I'm going to accelerate the case. Fast track it.
Sure.
So the case will come up. He will go to Gehenna, and eventually he'll serve his time and go to Gan Eden. So that.
Did he have any kids, Acher?
Yes, he does. We'll come to it. Okay.
So this is Rabbi Meir.
This is Rabbi Meir, the one who studied from Acher the whole time. So Rabbi Meir, his dedicated student, says, when I die, I'm going to look after this situation which has not been resolved, and the smoke will come up from his grave. There'll be this pillar of smoke coming up, which is a sign that Brent, okay? And sure enough, what happens? Kinoach nafshi Rabbi Meir. when Rabbi Meir died, Sale Kutra Mikivrei de Acher. So a kutra, a smoke cloud, came up. Sale came out of his grave of Acher. And apparently it was consistent. It was continual. Okay, it's like an underground fire. Sometimes these mine fires burn forever.
Well, his time was up.
Well, no, until the next line. So Amar Rav Yochanan. So Rav Yochanan, when he saw the smoke coming out of Acher's grave, and a lot of these guidance maybe sometimes assume some parts of the commentary. So maybe they knew Rabbi Meir studied with Acher, and when Rabbi Meir died, suddenly this smoky things comes up the cloud. So maybe that was the creator of the statement that Rabbi Meir said. So Rabbi Yochanan says, "Gevurta lemikle Rabbe." Is it a great thing to lemikle, to embarrass your Rebbe? In other words, what did Rabbi Meir do? He burnt his Rebbe. He embarrassed him. He said, "I'm going to have him punished."
Except we think he was doing it for good reason. No?
Correct. In other words, but look what he did. And Rabbi Yochanan says, "Chad have beinana." There was one person among us, v'lo matzina latzule, and we couldn't save him. So we had someone here who got away from us, and we could look what happened. We went to get him. He's burning. Okay. So what did Rabbi Yochanan say? Inakte miyad. Inakte, if I can, biyad man marmele man. They translate that.
No idea.
If I could bring him, inakte biyad, if I could take him by the hand and bring Acher to the Olam Haba, man marmele man, who will stop me? Who can take him away from me? In other words, if I will have the power to get a hold of Acher, I'm going to schlep him out of Gehenna, take him to Gan Eden. Who's going to stop me there? Power of Rabbi Yochanan, because I'm such a big Talmud Chacham.
Not just that, it gives you some concept of how they felt about Acher.
Correct.
Let's be serious.
Correct. They're redeeming him.
All these big guys who really want to...
Yeah. So one, Rabbi Meir thought to redeem him by putting him in Gehenna. Rabbi Yochanan said, I'll redeem him, I'll take him by the hand. And he goes and he says, Mosai Amos, when will I die? Means when I will die. V'yechbe ashan mikivro, and you'll see the smoke will stop from his grave. And sure enough, what happened? Kinoach nafshid Rabbi Yochanan, pasei kutra mikavri de Acher. Okay, wow. So the smoke pillar stopped from the grave of Acher, and that was the sign that Rabbi Yochanan, when he passed away, took Acher out of Gehenna and took him into Gan Eden.
Is this Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai?
No, this is Rabbi Yochanan, the famous Rabbi Yochanan of Reish Lakish, Rabbi Yochanan. Okay, the Amora of Yochanan, who appears in, I believe so. Maybe not. You know what? Maybe not. Maybe this is Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai. Yeah,
Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai was older, I think, wasn't he? I mean, he was.
Much previous generation. He was who lived at the
time. That's what I'm saying.
So I believe it's Rabbi Yochanan. Right? It's Rabbi Yochanan. That's the famous Rabbi Yochanan all the way through the Gemara, which, by the way, does not live that much close after Rabbi Meir. So a number of years between them. Rabbi Yochanan is an Amora, second, third generation. Rabbi Meir is still the end of the Tanaim. So it means this fire or this smoke went on for quite a while. All right. So, but apparently this is the story. And when that happened, when Rabbi Yochanan died and the smoke stopped coming up from the grave of Acher, that they all recognized was the sign of absolution, and Rabbi Yochanan taken to Olam Haba, Pasach Alehu Saftana, this professional eulogizer got up to say, because these were guys who said things at funerals, Afilu Shomra Pesach Lo Amad Lefanecha Rabbeinu. That even the keeper of the gate didn't stand before you. This was probably part of a longer eulogy or elegy, and one line was that you look how all the great things you did. Even the keeper of the gate to keep people out of Gan Eden had to bow before you, great Rabbi Yochanan.
Presumably, without sidetracking, it's not because he studied Torah. I mean, lots of people study Torah. The implication here is you shouldn't go to Gehenna at all. You can study Torah, because assuming you don't, you're not an Apikoros or whatever you want to call it, denier like he became. Right. Most people aren't.
Right.
So the implication here is
kids that take you out of Gehenna because they say Kaddish.
The implication is that there were redeeming features in Acher.
But there must be a lot of. I'm just saying.
Correct. It's a tragic figure.
The average person doesn't go to Acher even, right? The average person.
Sparta don't say Kaddish. They're always in Gehenna.
Who's always in Gehenna?
No, you said you say Kaddish, you go to Gehenna.
You know, he's wondering whether if you say, I think.
Oh, so Sparta never go to Gehenna because they never say Kaddish.
Sparta don't say Kaddish.
I don't know. Okay.
No,
Never heard of
that's
it.
Ashkenazi thing.
Fine. Yeah, I don't know.
They're always in Gehenna.
I see Sfaradim.
I
I see Sfaradim saying Kaddish all the time. As a
Yeah,
matter
but
of
they
fact,
pick it up, but they never say, they don't say.
they have this long paragraph, Bachaye, Rabbeinu, the Rambam, and everyone else.
They don't,
Yeah.
I don't think they do.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty sure that they do.
What they
Maybe
do?
they're assimilating.
They have an extra super long line.
Yeah, do they? Maybe I'm wrong. The Moroccans don't say. Okay,
sure.
fine.
I don't know. Okay. Mazon Advisin, but that's it. Okay.
Maybe it's yeah, mixed up.
I don't know. Onward.
Sorry, I didn't know.
Meanwhile, back at the
I
ranch.
didn't mean to, yeah, sorry.
Okay, so this is the story of Acher. Now, who wants to know if he had a child? Bito Shalacher, Asya Lekame de Rebbe. So the daughter of Acher came to Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. So now we're still in the time zone. This is Rabbi Acher is the teacher, Rabbi Meir, and Rabbi Meir is around 130. This is the daughter. Right. So this is the daughter of Acher.
Right.
Who is probably struggling after her father died and has probably been thrown out of the community.
Especially with smoke coming out of it.
Correct? So Amr Lay, and there doesn't appear to be a husband. So Amr Lay, she said, Rabbi, Parnaseni. She says, Rabbi Ranasi, can you give me Parnasa? Can you give me some sustenance? So Amr Allah, so he said, Basmiyat. He says, whose daughter are you? So Amr Allah, Bito Shalacherani. He says, I'm the daughter of Acher. So Amar Allah, he said to her, Adayin yesh mizar ba'olam? Is there really children from Acher? In other words, we thought we got rid of the last of him. Okay? There's nothing left. Vaksiv, it says in Eov, lo ninlo, v'lo neched be'amo, ve'in sarid b'mgurov. There's no grandchild and great-grandchild, and no remainder from his existence.
Where's this quotation
from Eov, chapter 18. Okay, I'm not sure what it's talking about there, but sure there wasn't good news.
They were really upset with him.
On the other hand, all these big guys are trying to save him.
Sure, they're upset with him. Of course, they're upset with him.
No, but
because he had all the scholarship and learning, and he turned to evil.
He represented a
right? The Lex Luthor of the Talmud. Oh. Right? Yeah. So Amros, and that's why I said that's what the Shulchan Aruch and the Poskim point out. That says you see that Rabbi Meir could learn from him, and even the others could see found goods. This, of course, is a story that has a lot of danger. In polemic, people, and especially in a time of Reformation and change and modernity, where people are breaking away from Judaism, and there's people who have scholarship, and they're maskilim, and they're non-believers, right? So the modern poskim say, if you accept what they say, that this story you really can't, we're no longer Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir had a special skill. He could take out what he could use and leave behind the heretical parts. It says, but we don't have that ability to do so. Even the great scholars can't do so. So we have to cut ourselves off from the modern scholarship of the non-believers, as good as it may be. Right?
Be against printing. Yeah.
No, be against scholarship.
Yeah, they were,
right?
For sure.
So she says back to Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, Amar Lo, she says, Zechar l'Toraso, v'al tizkor ma'asov. Remember his Torah and don't remember what he did. Okay, so he had good features, don't remember the bad. Miyad yarda eish v'sichsasa sapsalo sharebi. So a fire shot down from heaven and singed the stool or chair that Rebbe was sitting on. It's a wood chair. And suddenly it singed it. So Bacha v'amar Rebbe. And Rebbe started to cry and said, Umalim is ganim ba, kach l'mashtabchim ba, alachas kama v'kama. If those who are, break away, miskana is break away or knock them down. Those who are against God, this is how Hashem protects. Surely those who are praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu, surely will be protected.
What's he trying to say by this?
So Rabbi is saying, if God sent down the fire to punish me for even raising a question about the heretic who had Torah, surely the Torah scholar is really true blue. Surely HaKadosh Baruch Hu will protect that Torah scholar. Okay, that's what he picked up from that. Alachas kama v'kama. Okay. So now the Gemara asks the obvious question: Rabbi Meir hechi gam Torah mipum de Acher. How could Rabbi Meir learn the Torah from Acher? V'amar Rabbi Baruch Hanam, Rabbi Yochanan, Ma'ay nechsev. What does the pasuk mean in Malachi? Ki sifsei kohen yishmu das, v'Torah yavakshu mifihu, ki malach Hashem tzvakosu. Okay, the lips of a kohen will watch knowledge, and they'll seek Torah from his mouth, because he is like the malach of Hashem. And by the way, it's probably true that in the era of Malachi and before, the Kohanim were not just ritual leaders; they probably were the scholars. Rambam even talks about that. In other words, there were Kohanim and Nevi'im not just had spirituality; they also had Torah. So you want to ask the Kohen what to do. So what is this malitza here? So why is the Kohen, who is the scholar, who people are looking to get Torah from, why is he compared to Malach Hashem? So im doma Rav Malach Hashem tzvakos yivakshu Torah mifiu means only if the scholar is like the Malach Hashem, completely spiritually true blue. Right? He's completely connected to God. V'im lav al yivakshu Torah mipihu. And if not, don't seek knowledge from him. So this is the remez that the Rabbi Baruch Chana said about not learning scholarship and not learning Torah from the non-believer. So how could Rabbi Meir therefore learn from Acher? So the Gemara gives the answer we mentioned before. Rish Lakish, Rabbi Meir kara ashkech b'darish. Rabbi Meir had another pasuk that he learned for himself, that you can learn from a person what's good and leave behind what's bad, which the pasuk in Mishlei. Okay, first pasuk was Malachi. This is Mishlei. Hanaz nechosh shma divrei chachamim. Bend your ear and listen to the words of Chachamim. For libcha tashis ledati, and your heart should listen or to follow what my opinion. So, in other words, there seems to be a break here. One is there you should listen to the scholars, and then listen to me. So, ledatim lo nemar, elo ledati. Listen to me. So in other words, even if I'm not following the scholars, that's the drash that we're saying the Rabbi Meir had. Those Mishlei saying, listen to what the scholars say, and follow what I say or what I say. So which means I'm not one of the scholars. So Acher was not one of the scholars. So Rabbi Meir said, you see, from this pasuk in Mishlei, I can learn from a person of scholarship, even if they're not one of the Talmid Chachamim, because they broke with tradition. Okay. That's the remez.
Dati is the speaker, right, at this point?
In other words, Mishlei is saying, listen, bend your ear over and hear the words of the Chachamim, but your heart should follow what I'm saying.
So you can still learn wisdom from these characters?
From me,
Mishlei, let's say.
Me, Dati, whoever Dati is,
okay.
that I'm not one of the Chachamim. Listen to what the Chachamim is saying, bend your ear.
Okay.
When it comes to doing, follow me. So you see that you can follow someone who is separated from the Chachamim.
You can follow me still.
Right. Knows libcha, your heart should follow me. So doesn't say libcha. So Rabbi Meir is going to follow Acher, even though he has broken with the mainstream Chachamim. Right. That's the drash that Reish Lakish is saying that Rabbi Meir found this kind of remez pasuk. Right. Okay, so this is of course much later Rabbi Meir. This is anachronism, saying this is what he thought. We have another choice. Rabbi Chanina Omar Mehach. Rabbi Meir had a different pasuk from Tehillim. Shimi bas uri'i v'hati oznech v'shikhi amech u'beis avich. Listen, my daughter, and see and turn your ear, and forget your people and the house of your father. So in other words, you see that this bat is listening and forgetting the truth, but she's doing it. So Tehillim is somehow saying that you can do. You can follow someone who has forgotten her real, true blue roots, such as Acher. You're still allowed to listen to them. So those are the two psukim, or they're suggesting these two psukim, the one in Mishlei and the one in Tehillim, seems to say that you can follow and listen to someone even if they've separated from Beis Avich, even if they've separated from Amech, even if they're separated from the Chachamim, you can still follow them, which is what Rabbi Meir did. So that's what Rabbi Meir did. What we haven't really answered is how does Rabbi Meir answer the first pasuk, which was about the Sifsei Kohen, Yishmru Das, Yishmru Torah, Yishmru Das, V'Torah Yivakshim B'Piyu Ki Malach Hashem Tzvakosu. The first pasuk said you can only listen to the Kohen if he's like Malach Hashem. So that's a contradiction. And if he's not like the Malach Hashem because he broke with the Torah, you can't listen to him. So Gemara says Kasha Kraya Da. That's a Kasha. So Gemara says Lo Kasha Kan Haba Gadol Haba Katan. Okay. So a person who's mature and older knows how to separate wisdom from parts of wisdom from other parts. The Katan is very gullible. Katan looks up at authority figures and accepts everything lock, stock, and barrel. The Katan is not matured in terms of making value judgments, right? Whereas a more mature person can, right? Teenagers do what they do because the last part of the brain to mature is the frontal cortex, which has the ability to make certain discerning judgments. right? So they make irrational judgments. That's not fully able to think. But a person, once you become an adult, you can really see the foolishness of your youth, so to speak. So haba gadol, haba katan. Okay, and the Gemara simply says, Ki yas Rav Dimi, when Rav Dimi came, Amar says, Amri b'Marava, they said in the west. Where is the west? Israel. Rav Dimi is coming from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel. They said, Amri b'Marava, Rabbi Meir, Acha Tachla, V'shada Shichla Labara. Tachla is, according to many Mefarshim, a date. He would eat the date and he would throw out the pit,
what?
right? The pit,
maybe I don't know.
the remainder, the junk, right? The pit. Labara is outside.
Right.
Okay, so he threw it outside.
You wonder if, again, to sidetrack again, you wonder if this is, what shall I say, permission exactly, or says you can learn from the Goyim, for example. Okay, in other words, just because you learn their science or I don't know what, you don't have to accept their whatever. Let's say
You
Jews.
accept their religion, accept their
That's
science.
what I'm saying.
Yeah,
It sounds to me like it says if you should be able to learn things that are good in that sense, right? That are
Science.
When you see a great scholar, a non-Jewish scholar, you say bracha.
Right.
So
I agree. So the
that's
question
not
is, what's
exact. That's not exactly the comparison. The
But what?
comparison here may be a person who. Okay, let's think of an example. Ruth Calderon. Okay, Ruth Calderon for Yesh Atid, who posits the importance of studying Talmud, right? And has said
right.
publicly that on her Seder plate she puts down a piece of chametz.
Really? I know who she
Okay.
is, of course, but I didn't.
Abundance.
She said this 2 years ago, in 2014,
No,
after she got elected.
Teaches Talmud at Bar Ilan.
Correct. But she says, and look, okay, a lot of people eat chametz, but she says, I put a piece of bread on my Seder plate in order to remember the hunger that exists throughout the world. That's a symbol of fight against hunger. Okay. Now, you're not going to find that in the Talmud. Right.
Especially it says, the Torah says,
Correct. Now, look, there are a lot of ministers in the cabinet, a lot of politicians eat chametz, right? But no one ever gets up to say that I put chametz on my Seder plate. Okay, that's
Right.
I don't think actually she's
But
lost.
she
I
didn't say
think
she
she
ate
actually
it.
believes
She
it.
didn't say she ate it.
Right, she didn't say she ate it. Maybe the guy's chametz.
I know, and you can't see it.
We don't know that she owns it. It belongs to the guy. Who knows? She got a lafa from an Arab.
Right.
But the bottom line is, here's the question: can you learn and study from someone like Ruth Calderon? That's what the Moshe is. Moshe is not about science.
Oh, I see.
Science is general knowledge that can complement what we study in Torah.
Why? But
The
why
issue is,
that?
can you study from someone who doesn't maintain the traditions of Judaism? Here's a person who the value of what everything in Masechet Pesachim says has not been proven to be true, or has disproven it. She will give you a great Talmud shir, should you go sit and study from that. That's what the Acher story is all about. So Rabbi Meir felt, sure, I can study from Acher.
You have to be very careful because the undertone of
So that the Gemara says, Rabbi Meir, when you're a gadol, you can discern. Everybody has a bias. No one's perfect. You can pull out from the bias and understand what's being said. Maybe they'll explain to you a shvera tosos. Maybe they'll explain to you a difficult sugya. Or you'll find people today will say, right, no, you can't. You might be influenced. You might be sucked in. Who knows? So that's what the poskim say. The story of Acher, which has this duality, where you see he was a sinner, right? But yet Rabbi Meir could remain close, and even when he died, there was concern by Chazal to save his soul, and that the Torah protects him. That's a very dangerous story for the modern world. So they poskim say. So then you see that the Gemara comes out that yes, Rabbi Meir could do that. So maybe another person who's also a gadol could do that. You can figure out what you keep and what you throw out. So the poskim say, or the Shulchan Aruch actually says, and the poskim say it as well, that therefore you can't apply that today. I don't know, maybe you can, maybe you can't. Okay? So, okay. Dar lo more here barach, and then I'll go back to the piece here from what do you call it? Rav Dessler, from Mechtam Elio. Darash Rava, my dechsiv el ginat goes yirati l'rot bi nachal. This famous pasuk in Shir Hashirim. I went down to the nuts orchard to see the Iber Nachal, the trees of the brook. So Lama Nimshlo Talmud Chacham le'egos. So the Shir Hashem is meant to really refer to Torah and the Jewish people and Hashem. So in this analogy, they're looking at the egos as I'm going to study in the base medrash to the place with Rabbi Chachamim. Lama lacha ma egos gzeh afal pi shemluchlach batit ubetzoa ein ma shebetochon lemas. So if you have a nut, you have a member of the nut family which has a hard shell, even if it gets dirty on the outside with tit, this tar, and so is excrement, what's inside the fruit or the nut itself is not going to become ruined. Even if the Talmud Chacham becomes rotten, goes off the derech, his Torah still not become rotten. There's still beauty to his Torah. Okay?
So this really is a follow-up to...
Yeah, correct. It's a redemption of Acher. It's a redemption of the Acher story. That's the message. That's the scary part of this.
He was an egos.
Well, he was. Well, that's what he said. When he died, that's what they said. They said we don't have to do with him. Should he burn because of his sins, or should he go to Gan Eden because of his Torah? We can't do one or the other. So, and here's the coda to the story. Ashkeche Rabba Bar Shila Eliyahu. So Rabbi Bar Shila found Eliyahu, and he said, all these stories meeting Eliyahu. So Amalei, my Kavod HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, Elijah, tell us what's going on upstairs. What's the Kadosh Baruch Hu doing? So Amalei, so Eliyahu says, Kamar Shmaite Mipumaya Dekula Rabbanon. He is saying over Divrei Torah in the names of all the Chachamim. Umipumei Rabbi Meir Lo Ka'amar. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not saying over any Dvar Torahs in the name of Rabbi Meir. Ostensibly because he studies from Acher. So Amalei Amai, he says, why? Mishum the Kagam Shmaita Mipume de Acher. Because he studied from the mouth of Acher, that's why he's been excoriated, excommunicated by God. So Amalei Amai.
Right, the first one was a statement. It sounds like.
And now it's the emphatic. Amai, Rabbi Meir Rimon Matzat, Tocho Achal Klipasa Zarak. Rabbi Meir found a pomegranate. He ate what's inside and threw out the klipa, threw out the shell. Mm-hmm. Right? You don't eat the shell; it's not edible. So that's what he tells Eliyahu. And sure enough, he meets against Eliyahu in a little while. Samalei Hashda Kamar, and Eliyahu says, now, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying, Meir b'ni Omer, that Rabbi Meir, my son, is saying, or HaKadosh Baruch Hu obviously calls him Meir. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu is quoting a Shmaitata, a Maimar, in the name of Rabbi Meir, which is as follows: Bizman Sh'adam Mitztar Shchina Malashon Omeres Kalani Miroshi Kalani Mizroi. So when a person is in tsar, what does the Shechina say? Woe to my head, woe to my arm. Im kacha kadosh baruch hu mitzar adamim shel Hashem, kal v'chomer adamim shel tzadikim shenishbach. And the Gemara says, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mitzar, this looks like it's referring to Acher. Right? When they're talking about a person is in tsar, it's probably referring to Acher is in tsar for being in Gehenna. So if this refers to a Rasha being punished, Kadosh Baruch Hu is holding his head, Kaviyachal. So surely for a person that's tzaddik, when a tzaddik suffers, and a tzaddik whose blood has been spilled, okay. Okay. Yeah, well, let's take it to the bottom of the page. A little more about Acher, okay? Okay, then we'll go see the piece from Mechtam Elio. Ashkechei Shmuel Rav Yehuda, the Tali be'ibra dedasha b'kabachi. So Shmuel saw Rabbi Yehuda, who was leaning against, I think it's like the door where the hinge is, the briach, where the bolt is that holds the door. So there's a briach, and I'm not sure if it's a briach like when you have a deadbolt in a door, or it's like a door that is removable that has a bolt that keeps it in there.
It says al briach hadelet. Yeah, just said he.
Some briach. So some briach.
When he said he was Matzah Shmuel Yehuda Shehu Talui, so it sounds probably leaning rather than
right.
Nishan. He says Nishan.
Nishan. He's leaning.
He's leaning al. Right.
So he's leaning on this. I guess there must have been like a bolt that was sticking out that was easy to lean against. Yeah. Whatever it was, that would be a common thing. I don't think it was unusual to lean against. He's just telling you that he's leaning and he's contemplating. Because he's crying. So Amalei, so Shmuel says to Rabbi Yehuda, Shinana, sharp one. My kabachis, what are you crying? So Rabbi Yehuda says, Mizuchu mai dechsiv behu b'rabanan. Is it so simple what the pasuk says in Yeshaya about the Chachamim? Aye sofer, aye shokel. Where is the sofer? Where is the counter? Where is the person who's weighing? Aye Sofer Samigdalim. Where is the counter used to count those who were Migdalim, like I guess towers? I'm not sure. Or Aye Sofer Shesofrim Kolos Yoshibatorah. Where is, or maybe the Migdal may be like the Tagim. Where's the Sofer used to count all the Otiot in the Torah? Aye Shokel Shoklim Kalim V'Chamurim Shibatorah. Where is the person who would weigh all the difficult and easy and hard parts of the Torah? What does that mean? Aye Sofer Samigdalim. Here he explains it. What is a tower? Sheyishonim Gimel Meot Halacha B'Migdal HaPorech Ba'Avir. They would study 300 learned halachas.
I guess it must be that a migdal that was floating in air.
Right.
They say, what do you do? What's to do with probably a migdal that's floating in air or something? No.
So Rashi gives three interpretations. One interpretation, he says migdal comes from the lamed, that they would have all kinds of drushes about the height of the lamed. I'm not sure what that was. And the second one Rashi says is they were studying the story of Dor HaFlaga, Migdal Bavel, and all kinds of understandings what actually went wrong. And then the third interpretation Rashi says about Migdal Shalates, and it had to do with the halachas of Ahalos, which had to do with Tumah, and whether a Migdal, a tower that's made of wood that's standing in the air, is going to be Mikabel Tumah, not Mikabel Tumah. So in other words, it's some kind of thing, we don't really know exactly what it is. They had 300 halachas that they were studying. And where are all these scholars? The Rabbi Ami, and Rabbi Ami says, what are the 300 things we're talking about? Klas mea baye bo dog v'achitofel kemigdal porech bavir. Dog and Achitofel have 300 questions, 300 shilas, 300 diboyes, like about this topic of Migdal porech bavir. And we know what happened to them. They were among the Gimel Malachim v'Arba'at Yotos she'elam chelik b'olam haba. If Doeg and Achitofel are excluded from Olam Haba, as it says in Masechet Sanhedrin, and we believe they were scholars as well, big scholars, who could have 300 halachas about Migdal Porech Ba'avir, anan matehei alan. Okay, well, what about us? Where are we going? Now, if they kind of went off the path, and Doeg and Achitofel have no chelik on Olam Haba, where we don't hold the candles to them, what will happen to us? So this is what Rabbi Yehuda was pensive and crying about. What will be the fate of us scholars? As great as the previous scholars were, and he chooses usual people, Doeg and Achitofel, what will happen to us? And they were punished. What can happen to us? So Shmuel wants to console them. Amalei says, Shinan, a smart, sharp person. Tina Haita Belibam, there was some impurity in their hearts. And that's what caused them to sin. In other words, you can be a big scholar, but somehow you, Rashi says, Rishayim Hayumi Mehem. They had this wickedness, and they were always wicked from the beginning. There was something wicked in their hearts. Mm-hmm. So, in other words, the key is not scholarship. It's not intellectuality. It's as well the position or approaches you have to your relationship to the Almighty. That can affect you as well. So you, Rabbi Yehuda, you have a positive relationship with God. You know where things are at. These guys, Doeg and Achitofel, did not. So you don't have to worry. So that's a little bit off the topic. But the Gemara uses this now to come back to the Acher piece. And the Gemara wants to say, well, if that's the case, Acher must have done, what did Acher do wrong? So the Gemara says, Acher, what did Acher, what was the tina that Acher had? I mean, we're saying basically you only can become a heretic is if you have something goes wrong and it affects your scholarship. So he says, number one, look at the choice. Zemer Yavani lo pasach mipume. He was playing the top 10 hit tunes. Okay, he's singing the Greek songs, the top Greek songs. Okay, what's the matter with that?
Hard to say.
So is that a culture thing? Is that the fact that he was listening to pop music?
He listened to pop music during the destruction of the temple.
So Rashi says the problem was he was listening at Churban Abayis. Okay, this is after Churban. And the fact we are Mekel today, I'll tell you why we're Mekel, but the halacha really seems to be after Churban Abayis that all music was prohibited, except music for Chasna Kala. Musical like instrumentational music. because that kind of music engenders happiness. The same way, for example, that many of us don't listen to music during the 3 weeks or the stress Omer, right? Music, calms the wild beast. Music tends to really create a positive value. So, what about us, right? So there are very few people today that you would ask them that they don't listen to music. They may not listen to pop music. They'll listen to, I don't know, Hasidic music, Jewish music, Hasidic pop music, right? But it's still music. And they're not just listening on Chol HaMoed, not just listening at weddings. So the heter, one of the heterim is that we've gotten so depressed living in this world that we couldn't go on if we didn't have something just to keep us going. And music, music helps us while by the time. And as a result, I don't know of anyone who really keeps this halacha not to listen to music at all. But in the days of Acher, where people were strong and able and virile,
they didn't have music.
They didn't have music except at the wedding.
When you don't have it.
I'm sorry?
It's easy to be machmer when you don't have it.
Well, they didn't have it the way we have it.
No, that's
but the Greeks.
Right. Yeah. You have to remember, until the advent of the phonograph, of the Victrola.
You had to go to a concert.
Right, you had to have a chamber music was a rarity.
Please, fellas, where is this halacha? David HaMelech played music all the time. There were lots of people playing music.
This is before the Beis Hamikdash is destroyed.
Oh, I thought you didn't want to play music.
Churban Habayis. No, Churban Habayis. There are certain takanas that they made when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. You know what? We get so used to the fact we don't have a Beis Hamikdash. Okay, no Beis Hamikdash, big deal. But there was such a trauma to the Jewish people that they couldn't accept.
At that time.
And they viewed it, and the Christians viewed it too, as a sign that the Almighty turned away from Bnei Yisrael, the ultimate punishment. And we say it wasn't the ultimate punishment because we got saved, but it was pretty serious.
It definitely was. But then I have, the one, which Rabbi goes up to the BAYT and sees Shulim going through the thing, and he's happy. How come you're happy? So he was happy in spite of it, right at the spot.
So that's exactly the point. That story is told. It's Rabbi Akiva with Rabbi Meir, one of those.
Whatever.
Same Rabbi Akiva is the one who says he's comforted by
correct. But the fact that he says that stands out because everybody else is crying.
But everybody agrees. But this is right now, so certainly everybody. But he doesn't seem to be implying that for the rest of the Jews' existence they should never be happy.
Well, they assumed that the Beis Hamikdash would eventually be rebuilt.
Well, they thought no, because then who was the emperor almost actually allowed it to be rebuilt within 100 years. So it looked like just like it got rebuilt the first time within 100 years or whatever. Yeah, they thought it would be rebuilt right away.
So, anyways,
and the Christians thought what's his name was coming back also right away, but it didn't work out that way.
At any rate, so Rashi and the other Rishonim say that the sin of Acher, or the deficiency in Acher that kind of opened up the crack that allowed him to become a heretic, was the fact that he was belittling Churban Habayis. And that came across by the fact that he was playing Greek music, or he went to hear Greek music. It didn't cease from him wherever he went. Okay, so that's one interpretation.
Now, I think it probably had to do with who were the girls playing the Greek music.
So it probably also had to do with the Greek music.
Yeah. I'm saying they were playing the music.
Listen to the Kol Salonika record.
Right. Okay.
Now, was it anything?
Okay.
The Jewish community, yeah. So we BAYT sorry.
Okay. So the next is
right.
Amra Love. This is the second reason. Amra Love Alacher. B'shashe Omed mi Beit Hamedrash. When he would get up from the Beis Hamedrash, Harbe Sifrei Minim Noshi Mecheko. A lot of all these heretical books would fall out. So he was, in other words, he was influenced by all these bad readings that he was reading. It's not clear what the Sifrei Minim is all about. Is this Greek books? Is this Sifrei Sfarim Chitzoniim? Is this wisdom literature? Is this Christian books? No one knows, okay? But it means that you're influenced by what you read, by what you take in, clearly, right? So before he went to Tarbus Ra, see, while he still was in the Beis Medrash, he was known as the guy who brought in, right, the forbidden books. So it was no surprise, therefore, that he went off the derech.
Absolutely.
Right. So that's the sense. So he gives two answers. One is these Zemer Yavani, and the other is Sifrei Minim. Okay, but the bottom line is that the reason why he fell off the path was he had something that he wasn't careful about watching, and that influenced him in much greater levels. But you, Rabbi Yehuda, don't have to worry about this. Okay, you know what? Just look 3 more lines, and then we'll finish up the Acher story. Shal Nimus Hagardis Rabbi Meir. So Nimus Hagardi asked Rabbi Meir the following question: Kol Amar Denochas Liora Salik. Any wool that goes into the dyeing pool, Salik should come up. It's a question: Does the wool that you put into the dyeing pool absorb the dye or not? Okay. In other words,
once you get into the pool,
right? If you put wool into a blue pool, does the wool come out to be consistently blue?
Yeah.
And it's not a question about dyeing colors. It's really so. If you attach yourself to a Talmud Chacham, right? Does this help? Does their scholarship help you? The dyeing pool is the Talmud Chacham, the wisdom of the scholar. If you jump in and study with the scholar, do you absorb that wisdom to be protected by it? The same way the pool of blue dye is always going to be blue. So any wool that's thrown in, will it absorb it or not? So the answer is it's not true. It may or may not be. It may depend on the wood. Al malay, kol man dahavi nakiv agiv ime salik. Any wool that is clear, clean, and has not been tampered with, has not been affected by other extraneous colors, but is pure from the mother, salik will absorb the color. And called shelo havinaki agivime lo salik, but wool that has been tampered with, which makes sense. If you've included or added another kind of substance to it, it's going to prevent the wool from absorbing it. You've clogged the pores. You've clogged up the ability for the color is. So the nimshal is so that if a person has Yiras Hashem or Yiras Achet before his wisdom, so the wisdom will attach to him, and if not, if you don't have Yiras Chet, which comes first, Yiras Hashem, so then the Chachma will not attach. Rashi gives a second interpretation. He says it may also be about people going into Gehenna. In other words, if you go down to Gehenna, you can come up clean, and the Schusim will protect you. It's an inverted kind of nishal. I'm not sure exactly how it works. Anyways, so that is the Olav Omer. Oh, sorry, even Lo Salik, period. Okay, that's it. The next one we're going to talk about is Rabbi Kiva. Before I get to Rabbi Kiva, I want to do this piece here from the Myth of Eliyahu. Talks a little bit about this fire thing. Okay, plenty of info. Okay, all right, good. Sorry for the small print. I went to get on one side. The Gemara. Okay, is that okay? That's how I took my glasses off. The Gemara relates that when Acher died, the heavenly tribunal was at a loss of what to do with him. On the one hand, he could not be judged in Gehenna because he had been deeply involved in Torah study during his lifetime. On the other hand, he could not be brought to Olam Haba because he had committed many sins. Rabbi Meir, Acher's student, exclaimed, "It's better to be judged in Gehenna in order to be brought down to Olam Haba." Brought to Olam Haba eventually. When I die, I'll be able to make smoke rise from his grave. And sure enough, that happened. Right? He died, smoke came from the grave. But subsequently, Rabbi Yochanan declared he wanted to end Acher's punishment. He said that no one in Shemayim would stop him from bringing Acher to Olam Haba. He personally took him there after his death. And sure enough, that's what happened. The smoke stopped coming up. How is Rabbi Meir able to cause Acher to be judged in Gehenna, symbolized by smoke rising from his grave? Also, why was Rabbi Meir unable to bring Acher directly to Olam Haba without Acher first being judged in Gehenna? After all, enabling Acher to Olam Haba was Rabbi Meir's objective. It is better that he be judged in Gehenna in order to be brought to Olam Haba eventually. Right. So what's this all about? Going to Gehenna, going to Gan Eden, smoke and all that. So the Rabbi Leir Dessler and Miftah Miyal explains as follows. Tosas writes, what was Acher's problem? That when Acher's father brought him as a child to Torah, his intentions were impure. Lo lishma. Acher's father had seen the great respect afforded to Talmidei Chachamim and said he wanted his son to receive the same respect. Someone mentioned the other week about that book that was published. What's it called? Like a driven leaf, right? Yes. So that scenario is in the story. So the first scenario, the father's bringing Acher. Right. As a result, so the father wants Acher to get kavod. As a result, all his life, Acher learned Torah Shelo Lishma. The Yerushalmi side of Tosfos records two possible causes for Acher's waywardness. It's actually also in the Bavli. It's those doing Daf Yomi. It's just coming up now. Kedushin. One opinion says that he saw a young man dying while performing the mitzvah of honoring his father, which the Torah says one's rewarded with long life. His father asked him to send away a mother bird, Shalach Likam from the nest, in order to take the chick. Right, which the Torah says one is rewarded with long life. And what happened to him? The guy was coming down from the ladder and fell and died. Another opinion says he witnessed the tragic scene of the tongue of the martyr Rabbi Yehuda HaNachton. Rabbi Yehuda HaNachton. In the Bibli, it's Chutzpah Samaturgaman. All right, Chutzpah Maturgaman was the one who spoke the Torah over.
What's his connection with?
So in the Yerushalmi, it's a different rabbi. So this is why the Asarog Malchus, the Romans, is a way to torture the scholar who studied. They ripped out his tongue. Okay, and they ripped out his tongue, and his tongue was dragged away by a dog. In the Bibli, by the way, it's dragged away by a pig. It's even worse. Rabbi Yehuda Nachshon spent his entire life steeped in learning and teaching of Torah. See Kedusha 39b, that's where the story is the variation. Since Acher perceived the learning of Torah, purpose of learning Torah as a means of gaining respect, when he saw that one would learn Torah all his life and receive no honor for it, and even so suffer torture and disgrace for it in this world, he could not tolerate the incongruence, and the incongruence caused him to go astray. Okay, so this is what happens. These are stories that are not here in our case. Right? We don't have it in our Gemara. These are stories in Kedushin, Daf Lamed Testament base, and then the Yerushalmi. The two events that kind of really affected Acher. One is watching the person fall off the ladder, not going to do the mitzvah Shalach HaKan, because when you go do a mitzvah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu protects you. But he was finished the mitzvah, he was coming down, and he fell and died.
But he had done two mitzvahs actually, right?
Correct. Keep it Avayim and Shalach HaKan. So Acher says that's it. It doesn't pay to do the mitzvahs. And the second one was the story of Chutzpah and Maturgman, or Rabbi Yehuda Nachshon, whose tongue was being pulled away, ripped away by a dog after the Romans had ripped it out, which was a terrible torture. So judgment in Gehenna means that a soul realizes the terrible void that characterizes life in the physical world due to the transgressions that he committed. This terrible shame continues until the soul has suffered enough for all the transgressions that he committed. The soul is then cleansed of the stain of those transgressions, and the person is able to receive reward for all the mitzvahs which he did fulfill the Shema. Okay, that's what happens to Gehenna. Since Acher had learned so much Torah and excelled to great heights in his Torah learning, even though it was not Lishma, his soul could not experience the feeling of void and lacking which characterizes the Gehenna experience. Okay, so he couldn't go to Gehenna because he studied Torah. And he didn't have that void. On the other hand, since his soul could not be purged of his transgressions in Gehenna, his soul also could not enter Olam Haba. Rabbi Meir therefore decided he would help the whole soul of Acher. And why Rabbi Meir? Rabbi Meir excelled in learning Torah Lishma. It was Rabbi Meir who said, one who has learned Torah Lishma merits many things, in the beginning of Perik Vav. Since Rabbi Meir's learning was entirely Lishma, he had the ability to cause Acher's soul a great sense of shame. When Rabbi Meir died and Acher saw the difference between his learning and Rabbi Meir, the soul of Acher finally felt the shame of the tainted way he had learned Torah while he was alive. Thus it was through Rabbi Meir that Acher was able to experience Gehenna, because he saw the void, saw what he wasted, and be cleansed of his transgression, and as a result, eventually merit entry to Olam Haba and be rewarded for his mitzvos. That's the story with the smoke coming up. Rabbi Yochanan, however, sought to bring Acher's soul directly to Olam Haba. Through learning Torah, a Talmud gives merit to his deceased Rebbe. Rabbi Yochanan often quoted teachings he had heard from Rabbi Meir. It's likely he also ascribed them to their original source, Acher. This is a conjecture by Michtav Eliyahu, the teacher Rabbi Meir. So, by transmitting the teachings of Acher, Rabbi Yochanan was able to bring merit to the soul of Acher. So you bring merit to the soul by saying things over in the name of the deceased. And therefore, he was able to bring Acher's soul directly to Olam Haba through learning the Torah that Acher, I guess, had said. I'm not sure why Rabbi Meir couldn't do this, but I guess Rabbi Yochanan could. When Rabbi Yochanan died, people quoted the teachings he had taught in the name of Rabbi Meir and Acher, and thus he was able to raise Acher out of Gehenna and bring him to Olam Haba. So it's not that Rabbi Yochanan quoted Acher and Rabbi Meir. When Rabbi Yochanan died, people quoted the teachings that Rabbi Yochanan quoted in the name of Rabbi Meir and Acher. Rabbi Meir, in contrast, could not bring Acher to Olam Haba in that way. Since Rabbi Meir lived in the same generation as Acher, he could not quote Acher and give honor to Acher's teachings because he did not want others to respect Acher and learn from the corrupt conduct. Right? So it's only Rabbi Yochanan, who's years later, who was able to do this. Thus, the only way Rabbi Meir could cause Acher to go to Olam Haba was to cause him to be judged for his transgression. Rabbi Yochanan lived later in a generation from which no one could have known Acher personally and learned from his ways, and thus he had nothing to fear by quoting teachings in his name. And therefore you have this incongruous situation situation where Rabbi Meir is forced to take his Rebbe and take him down to Gehenna, and Rabbi Yochanan, who never really saw either of them, was able to kind of accelerate the process and move into Gan
I
Eden.
wonder how they, when it says transmitted the teachings of Acher, right? I mean, that's clearly Rabbi Yochanan did. I wonder, did he use the word Acher? I guess he did. When he said, I learned this, Kedivrei, I guess.
I guess so.
I guess
so. We don't
As
find,
opposed to mentioning his name. Let's
right.
say,
We don't find Moshe ben Avuya mentioned in the Gemara.
Yeah. Ooh.
All right.
This sums it up there. Dressler.
Okay. Should we go for a few more minutes or stop here?
Whatever you want. We're all here.
Okay, so we'll stop here. So this, the last one is Rabbi Akiva's story, is the last of the four. He's got a very short story. Then we actually talk a little bit about doing Averis privately and publicly. Okay, and we talk about the difference between shadim and between people.
Oh,
And difference shadim compared to angels and shadim compared to people.